But we we went to dinner. We went to dinner at Stella's once or twice, and it would just be me, John, a couple other fellas. Joe, I swear to you, within 30 minutes, you had bosses and underbosses from every family in New York would know he was in Stella's having dinner. 30, 40 guys all over the restaurant
Wow.
from other families.
Wow.
Plus, of course, the Gambinos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We were having dinner there that night, and the deputy fire commissioner was there, New York City, came over to the table. Hey, John, such a pleasure to meet you. So nice to meet you. The
Yeah.
deputy New York City fire commissioner.
Wow.
Another guy came over to the table. I mean, just from every walk of life. We were having dinner one night, and the Canadian Prime Minister, Brian Mulroney, came over. I want to meet you. I wanted to meet you. So nice to meet you.
Wow.
And yeah, and he says to John, he says, we have something in common. So, John looks at him and he says, yeah, he says, I also lost a son.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
remember, John lost a son.
Yeah.
John lost Frankie.
Mhm.
Well, so did this fellow that came over to meet him. And,
Wow.
John was a bit taken by that. Here's this guy from a high Canadian official, prime minister. Think about it. He knew that John lost a son.
Wow. That's
You know,
pretty big. Yeah,
I
that
said
is
to
big.
John, I says, do you realize what this guy is saying? Yeah, he shook his head. He just, I said, it was an amazing ride. I call it a ride. It was an amazing thing. It was an honor. It was a
How,
privilege to be around this guy.
how did he handle all of that stuff? That kind of people walking up to him wanting to talk to him.
Well, he used to have this head shake, and he'd shake his head, and I guess in his mind, he knew who he was. There's no
Hmm.
doubt about it. He wanted his legacy. He always used to say to me, Lewis, you're the one I want to make sure. I want people to know who John Gotti was. I want my legacy out there. I want people to know. And I used to promise him, Grandpa, I will make sure people know.
Hmm.
And it was me. Vicky used to do a lot. I hope she's well. I don't know. I don't hear from her. Um, and yeah, his legacy was important. But as a boss, people he was not this, not. He was a great boss. He was fair. Not greedy. I've said this so many times. I don't want to sound repetitive, but in my opinion, and the way I knew him, and no one knew him the way I knew him. No one, not his family. No one. He was the best boss, the best friend you could have.
Wow.
You know, if he liked you and he loved you, he didn't give a fuck. He went to the wall for you. And if you said anything about that, or somebody would say, hey, Lewis, he was out there. See, I wasn't that kind of guy. I wasn't out partying and doing all that. So there was never no beefs about me.
Yeah.
The only beefs about me, he would say, well, stop reaching in people's pockets. How many accounts you want in the garment center? You got enough. You know,
Well,
he would say, take it easy. There's enough for everybody.
but we would, yeah, right. You said don't reach in anybody else's pocket. He said the statement like that or something,
Mhm.
right?
But
And
he always said that. But if I knew then what I know now, I would have
yeah,
been,
well, of course.
forget it. I knew the power I had. I don't believe I abused it. Some might say I did, but
Mhm.
if I ever had a second time, we don't get second times, Joe. But if
No,
I had a second time, I would have given them a reason to put a beef into John, and people did.
right.
He didn't care though. He used to laugh. He used to tell me all the time. So what'd you do, Jew boy, today? Am I getting any beef? Do you have any fights with it? He says, did you ever have a fist fight in your life?
That's
I
what he
says,
asked you?
yeah, he used to say, did you ever have a fist fight in your life? I say, no. He said, I didn't think so. He used to break my balls. He says, and the good thing about it, you'll never have to.
Wow, there you go. That's
You
it. That
know?
and that made you feel good too, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What
He
about what he
says,
told you about what he says when he's gone? We were
well,
talking a little bit about that. I
he
want my
told me,
audience to hear
he
that.
says, listen, when I'm gone, he says, stay away from everybody. He says, you have my son, you have my family, which is your family. He says, my brothers, they're all no good. He says, when Jeannie gets out, you have Jeannie. He says, you can always trust Jeannie. And that's it. Little did he know. See, because I got into it with him a lot about his son, but he was sick at this point, and it was unfair for me to do it, And what was the purpose? He was sick, so let him leave this earth believing what he wanted to believe. But he knew in his heart that Junior just did the wrong thing and didn't fight the fight, and he was not his father. He was not that he ever said he was. That I will say, not that he ever said he was. He couldn't. He wasn't a pimple on his father's ass, and he'll be the first to admit it. But Pete was a disappointment. Richie was a complete disappointment. They might have been born Gottis, but they weren't John Gotti. They had different blood. I'm being facetious.
Yeah.
They were no John Gotti. And he told me, he says, stay away from everybody. Thank God you don't need nothing from anybody. Between your success and between me, you don't need nothing from nobody. Stay away from them all. You have my
They're all fakes. A lot of these guys are fakes and phonies and liars, like you said.
But I wanted to tell him, your own son's a fake. Your own son's a liar. Never did nothing. Never did nothing for nobody. Not his sisters, not me, not Pete. When I say not Peter, John Sr. was all about himself. A narcissistic person, all about John Jr. It was all about John. He was nothing like his father. He was nothing like John Sr. John Jr. was all about himself, all about his money. Ask Mikey Scars. Mikey Scars was the brains when they made John Jr. the acting boss. It was Mikey Scars that ran construction. Junior didn't have the brains to do any of that.
Wow.
It's all Mikey Scars. Junior went along for the ride.
Wow. This is, I like the fact that this is all enlightening. You know what I mean?
If he loved his father so much, how come the guy allegedly that assaulted his father in Marion, how come there was no retaliation? I mean, I'm not promoting violence and I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, if you're this devoted, again, I'm not a wise guy.
Yeah, right.
And I was fuming, although I know the real story, what happened there, and we could talk about that.
Yes.
How come Junior didn't seek retaliation for his father? Even if it never happened, even if they pretended it happened. Because, a lot of you could pretend. You understand,
Yes, I do, Louis. That's why.
They could have orchestrated a whole story, and I could have fed it to the media. Do you understand?
Yes. That's why I want you to touch on that, because you said he had to get, like we said, a lieutenant to COs escorted. Now, suppose he got jumped in Marion or something like that, or beat up by a guy. Let's clear that up.
Let me tell everybody what happened.
Yes, please.
This guy, Johnson, a black guy that was brought in. Now, keep in mind, before I get into that, keep in mind, John was an escort. Everybody in Marion's an escort. When you're in Marion, when you're in that level 6, you're an escort. It's a non-movement facility. When your cell is open, there's 2 correction officers there, plus either a sergeant or a lieutenant or your counselor. When you go to the yard, because of John's high-profile status, when he went out for his hour a day, which was not an hour a day, maybe it was 30 minutes a day, you were under escort. There was no one else in the yard. It was a non-contact situation. Always. On that particular day, that man was in the yard.
Wow.
Now, keep in mind, Marion is a 3-step situation. So once you do the 3 steps, they have to automatically ship you out and put you in a penitentiary.
Oh, okay. That's good for everybody to know. Yeah.
Most people don't know that. Okay. But Marion at that time was, if you get through the first step, you're good. That takes a year. You get through the second step, you're good. That maybe takes a year, maybe more. It depends on the mood of the warden. But the warden knew, we knew that. Most inmate families don't know that. Now he gets to step 3. Now they got to ship him out. So I'm on the phone with the warden, and I'm on the phone with his counselor. You got to go. He's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
He made all 3 steps. Now, John doesn't know that me and Vicky are doing this because he would have blown his top. So, never would give an inch. So a lot of things that I was doing and Vicky was doing was on the down low. Because had he found out, he would have destroyed us. He would have kicked our asses somehow.
Yeah.
And when that phone call came in, if we didn't get that phone call, our heads were crazy. Did he call you? No. Did he call you? Did he call you? And this would go on. I said, all right, he's mad. He's pissed. You don't want him pissed. A guy's doing time locked down.
Right.
In a dog cat, in a crate.
Right.
In a crate.